That's what the spirit of abortion is. It's the spirit of murder. It's actually child sacrifice. It really is. It's child sacrifice. That is what they did to offer to Baal the children. And if people could understand that, their guards would be up, you know. The enemy is coming in to steal, kill, and destroy. He does that in every way imaginable. He stole my baby from me, killed my baby because I listened and believed his lies. I am a follower of Jesus Christ, and I was saved when I was only 9 years old. I was brought up in church and loved the Lord, but you know, so it was awesome. I was filled with the love of Jesus early on, and I remember leading my young cousin to Christ right after that. But you know, I hadn't really experienced life yet and the issues that come along with it. I was just filled with love in my heart and just the purity of love when I was 9 years old. Am I pro-life? Yes, I am very, very pro-life. So I am a post-abortive parent. I had one abortion when I was 16 years old, and I would wish I could go back and change it. It wasn't even something that I wanted in my heart. It was something I felt other people wanted and kind of expected, and I was scared. I was scared because I was 16. All of a sudden, life was full of uncertainties, and the spirit of fear came in, and I hear the voices of, you know, you can't do this. Like, how are you going to do this? I was going into it was the summer in between my sophomore and junior year of high school. I was always had been an excelling student, straight A's, had a really promising, you know, future at that point, and you know, heard the lies of the enemy that it would destroy my life, that I would have to quit school to get a job and work to take care of the baby, that it may be hard for me to have a future husband that would take me and my child in, because at 16 I wasn't thinking about marriage, even though I was still in the relationship, you know, and I continued in that relationship for a while, but I wasn't thinking about marriage at that point. And it just, I had come through my parents having a very bitter divorce, and I had been through that trauma just a few years before that, and had promised myself that I wouldn't do that to my babies. And so the thought of bringing a child out of wedlock, you know, already into a situation where there'd be a broken family was very overwhelming for me. And just all of the lies of the enemy, you know, started creeping in, and I didn't see any way out. It was just fear. And I think the people around me, my family, were also afraid, you know, for those same things. And so I didn't really have a voice telling me not to, other than God. But when you're afraid, it's easier to believe the lies, you know. And so I silenced that voice in the pit of my stomach, because there were so many uncertainties, and in my family that wasn't good. Like, you had to know how you were going to get from point A to point B, and so to not have the answers, I didn't really know what else to do. I was taken to a Planned Parenthood, and in all honesty, I was so naive. I had just turned 16. Well, I was a few months after being 16, and this was my first boyfriend. I wasn't even allowed to date till I was 16. And I did not know what Planned Parenthood really was. I didn't know. I thought that this was a regular gynecologist office, because I had never experienced that in my life. I thought that this was just a regular office, and that all offices did this. And so when I was taken there to be given all my options, I just thought this was normal. So I you know, went there and to to Planned Parenthood and they give you all the options, and they lie to these young, vulnerable, scared girls. And sometimes they may not be young, sometimes they're older, but everybody that goes there is afraid, because you don't go there if you're not afraid. And it's like the enemy preying on the fear, on the weak and the vulnerable, because they're scared. If they weren't scared, they wouldn't be looking for another option. So I knew I had such love in my heart that I had always just asked God to be a good mom. Even when I was a little girl in school, they said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I said, "A good mom." I just knew I just had a love for children, and I knew I wanted to be a good mom. And so I was like, I just didn't feel I could do adoption. Like I would not be able to give my baby away. And so since this was such a surprise and such an unplanned, and there was a very heavy spirit of what other people thought in my home and on me, and I was afraid of what other people would think, and my reputation and the reputation of my family, because I was a good little Christian girl, you know, and always tried to a rule follower and always did the right thing. So this seemed like a way out, which is a terrible thing to say, because I was even told, you know, this was in the summertime, and I was told, you know, you can go back to school and nobody ever has to know, which that concretes that secret and the shame that goes along with that. So what basically I had to block my conscience, because in my heart I didn't want this, and I knew I'd always asked to be a mom. I didn't want to be one at 16, but you know, I was feeling the guilt of my actions causing that. So I've always tried to please other people, and I knew that what other people thought mattered to my family. And I do also know that out of love and concern for me, that they were also afraid. They were afraid for me and for my future. So I went through with this, and my boyfriend's family was the same. Like, also I didn't have a voice encouraging me not to, basically. I wasn't fresh. I made the decision, but I didn't have a voice in opposition, except my inner voice. And so I just went ahead with it. And the hardest part, I mean, the pain that comes after that, and knowing that you've taken a life. It's not just tissue. It's not just a group of cells. This is a human life with a soul, and they feel pain. You're told when you go into Planned Parenthood, they tell you there is no feeling. It is not life yet. It is not, and when you're afraid, even if you know that that's not true, you believe the lie, because it makes you feel better, you know, when you're facing just a decision where there's not an easy answer, and you know you're going to have hard no matter what. But you know, there's no support afterwards. There's no support afterwards. And even, and this isn't to disrespect anyone, but afterwards, it was never mentioned again. And I carried that shame alone. It's as if everyone else is like, okay, the problem is gone. You know, we don't have to think about it, and we don't have to talk about it, and no one has to know about it. And we're going to go on with life like it never happened. And that might have worked for everybody else, but it didn't work for me. Because I was saved. I was a Christian. So, most people, or a lot of testimonies, they didn't know Jesus yet, even though they knew it was wrong. But that even added another layer of guilt on me and shame. and I couldn't talk to anyone. And I was so broken. And I didn't know how to deal with it other than bury it. I had to bury it because there was no way to fix it. There was no way I couldn't undo it. So I had to bury it. And I remember it taking a while to even ask God for forgiveness because I felt so unworthy. Like, how could I ask him to forgive me for taking a life that he had given me when I knew it was wrong? And so I don't remember how long it took for me to ask for forgiveness because I just was afraid to even go there. I always knew Jesus loved me. I did always know that. But I was afraid. Just like a child, if you've done something bad and you're afraid to go face your parents because you don't want to tell them, and you don't. So that's how I felt. And but I finally did ask him to forgive me, and I knew he did. And he forgave me a long, long time before I forgave myself. A long time. So I buried it down. I couldn't forgive myself. And then immediately more fear came in place because I'd always wanted children and asked to be a good mom, and then took away a child. And there was this overwhelming fear that I wouldn't be able to have children after that because I had something good God gave me, even though the circumstances weren't what desired. And I took it away. And the realization, see, the lie of the enemy is that they tell you that abortion is not murder. And it is. And if someone had told me, you're actually murdering your baby, I would have never went through with that. But they tell you all these pretty lies to cover it up and to glorify it and to make it okay. And it's not okay because once it's done, they don't care anything about you. And they're very cold, very, very cold. There's no emotional support whatsoever. And the joy that pregnancies can bring, but they tell you, I really think it has to be called for what it is. Because it is murder. And I would bet that probably at least 90% of these mothers, if not more, would never ever consider taking the life of someone out on the street or a child or anything. We would never hurt someone. I mean, we stand up for the innocent. But yet, somehow we've been lied to and convinced that it's okay to take the life of our own child. And when that realization hit me, that I was guilty of murder, and not for self-defense reasons, or protecting my own life, or protecting someone else. It was because of selfishness of myself and being worried about it changing my life in a way I didn't want. And somehow, people, for murder, you go to prison, and you should. But somehow, it's okay for people to murder their babies. It's not okay. It's not okay, and we have to change that narrative that it's okay and that you can go on with your life as normal, because it's not okay. There is forgiveness for it, but it's not okay. It's not okay. I feel like if it's called out for what it is, it would change the hearts of people. It would change the hearts of mothers. Because mothers, God put in us to love our children. And unless you're overtaken by another force, through different, the demons work in all kinds of ways through addictions and whatever. But if you are, and I'm not saying anything wrong about that, I'm just saying it's a natural instinct of every mother to love her child. It's a natural instinct. But what happens is fear comes in, and the world, the enemy, we say the world, but it's the enemy, because it's the enemy of God and the enemy of life, that steps in and says, we have a fix for you. We can make it all disappear. But it doesn't ever disappear. It never disappears. Your baby, first of all, doesn't disappear. That baby goes to heaven. They are a living soul. And you have just cost yourself, you've exchanged their life and the joy and the value that they're bringing, not just to you, but to the world, their gifts and their purposes, and you're exchanging that for what is thought to be an easy fix to your temporary problem. But pregnancy is actually temporary. The effects of abortion are forever, and they even can carry into generations. The enemy tells you that pregnancy is forever and abortion is a temporary fix or a quick fix. But he's a liar. Everything he says is lies. The truth is that pregnancy is temporary and life is a gift, and the effects of abortion are forever. They're forever, not just on your life, but it affects all the generations. It affects everyone around you, because from that deep pain, if you have unhealed pain and trauma, we talk about that because it causes such great pain. And, we talk about it all the time, and mental health awareness has come out, and PTSD for people in the military or different traumatic issues. I didn't understand all this then, but that's a real thing. And that's, I believe, what I was suffering from. It was very traumatic. It was a very, not just the actual procedure, but everything surrounding it, and emotionally. And then to keep it bottled up, it'll make you almost crazy. But I just kind of blocked it and went on with my life. Well, a few years after that, I started having lots of pain in my body. After my first living child was born, which was only a few years later, because I was married at 19 and had her when I was 21. So this wasn't but a few years, maybe 5 years after. And after I had her, something happened in my body, and all of a sudden I had all these symptoms and all this pain and all this, just, it's like my whole body was shutting down, and I couldn't understand because I'd always been healthy. And they said that they finally, I went to many doctors that didn't understand, and then they finally said, you have all these autoimmune conditions, which is inflammatory diseases, basically, that were causing all kinds of problems in my body. And they said that the childbirth had triggered that. But what I realize now is that it was the pain that triggered it. It was pain and trauma that was pinned up in me for so long. And I still didn't. And I went to doctors and I tried medicines and nothing worked. And I gave up. And I said, God, just me and you are going to do this. And we're going to get through this. So God helped me overcome that. But I still didn't understand, that, it caused issues down the road in my marriage, caused issues in my relationships. And it's what I understand now is because of the pain that was never dealt with, that was just bottled up inside. And it is actually a scientific fact that I've learned, that if you hold on to unforgiveness or pain, which I had not forgiven myself, it actually does create inflammatory disease in your body, in your bloodstream. It actually changes the acidity in your body, your pH levels, and you develop, this is why I developed the autoimmune conditions. I now know that. Mentally, I was a wreck. And my life for a long time after that became controlled by fear. And even though I wasn't I didn't think I was a person that was afraid, but fear of the unknown guided my life, Like, I was afraid to take steps to step out and do something in faith because I didn't know how it was going to turn out. And that's kind of where this stemmed from, was the unplanned pregnancy, and I didn't know how it was going to turn out or what was going to happen. God has actually just recently revealed to me that it was some PTSD, but definitely depression, anxiety. Oh my goodness, anxiety came in, and there was a period in my life that I developed severe anxiety and panic attacks. Just never feeling good enough, never feeling like I could never measure up. I could never be good enough, because no matter what I did or how good I did it, no matter what I did right, I still had that in the shadows, in the background, and a secret. And I am very pro-life. I have just recently started talking to other mothers that are post-abortive, but I don't know of anyone, a post-abortive mother, that doesn't regret her decision. But for years after this, because this happened 24 and a half years ago. I would have a 24-year-old right now. I believe he is a boy. I named him Joshua Caleb. So it actually was when I was watching Krista speaking on this project called The Cloud Cries Out on Elijah Streams. And January 21st, 2022, and she was telling her testimony of being taken up into heaven in the spirit and seeing her own 2 little girls there. And God was speaking to me directly through her, because that just broke something off of me when she said that they ran up to her and hugged her and they said, "Mommy, Mommy, we love you. We're so proud of you." And she said there's no condemnation there. There's no shame or guilt. And it's as if they never know that you did that. They don't know, or they don't remember. They don't see you in that way. They just see you as their mom. And that was so healing for me and so freeing for me, because I love Jesus and I have gotten closer to him since that time. But the one thing I had hesitancy about going to heaven was my baby, because I didn't know what that would be like. I didn't know. I was like, oh, am I going to stand before the judgment and have to answer to my child, and they're going to hate me? And the Bible says there's no condemnation for those that are in Christ, and we believe that, except when it comes to certain sins, certain things, we deem as unforgivable. And I think the problem is we just struggle so hard to forgive ourselves. It's easy to forgive other people for their mistakes. It's extremely difficult to forgive yourself, and especially, that's not a little mistake. That's a life, and it needs to be valued as a life. I wasn't sure I was going to share this part, but it's part of it. It's part of it. So you don't realize when you hold on to pain like that, and the shame and the guilt, which are all just lies of the enemy, you don't realize what it can do to you and how it affects your mental state and how it affects how you react to others. And you can't come from a place of just pure love, because you feel rejected and you feel shame and you feel guilt. You don't realize really the damage it causes even into your future relationships. So fast forward, and I get married to a good godly man, and we start a family, and I'm just, oh my goodness, I prayed every day when I was pregnant, just still had that fear, that maybe something would be wrong or go wrong because of my previous abortion, and just prayed every day, God, please let my baby be born healthy. Please let my baby be born healthy. And just really cherished the gift that God was giving me, because I didn't deserve it. But the truth is, we don't deserve any of his gifts, but he gives them to us because he loves us. But I became a mom at right before my 22nd birthday. Like, I was already a mom, but I became a mom to a living child. And my oldest daughter, Riley. And, you know, I was just so in love with this new wife. And I still had the other part buried. But years later into my marriage, and we had another son. We had a son 4.5 years later named Ryan. And things were good, you know. I mean, life has its challenges and hard, but things were good. But I didn't feel good enough. I always felt rejected, not by my husband. It had nothing to do with my husband. It was inside. And I ended up having an extramarital affair after we had been married 12 years. And it went on for a while. And it was really painful. God did rescue us from that. And I'm not going to glorify that situation because it was bad. I was in sin and I was wrong. But God rescued us and saved our marriage, which, by the grace of God, saved our marriage and the other marriage. So, praise God. But it's only been recently, and this is why I have to share it. So, I wasn't going to share this part, but it is part of the story because God has recently revealed it to me. That, not excusing my decisions and my actions, but God has recently revealed to me that it was the pain that I was carrying that had never been healed from that led to other bad decisions and trying to break apart my family and the good thing that God had done for me. And the enemy was coming in to steal my destiny and to steal all the good that God had in store for me. And he started with my parents' divorce. You know, that was the first huge breaking point in my life at 12 years old. And just 4 years later, that was a very bitter time in my life. And 4 years later, I had an abortion. And that was just more guilt and shame. Because even in my parents' divorce, I always felt not like not like it was my fault, but you feel you can't, it puts guilt on the kids. It does. It breaks the kids. And so then, you know, the enemy just piles shame upon shame upon shame. So then I was always seeking approval and validation. So we were in a tight place in our marriage. I mean, our marriage was good, but, you know, we were struggling financially. I had just lost a job of over 10 years. And up until that point, that had been my identity. And I was feeling just such a spirit of rejection. It was probably one of the lowest points of my life. So basically what I'm saying is the enemy set everything up to open the door, because into the new job was where I was in a total different environment and where the affair started. So looking back, I see the connection. I see that it was the hurts that were never healed and dealt with. And again, not excusing my own choices, but there was a demonic plan to take me out. And the reason it was so strong is because there's a divine plan for my life and for my family. And, you know, for people that know me, I mean, my nickname in high school was Goody Goody. So, and Smiley, because I love to smile, and I've always just loved people. And so I felt like this was a secret I would take to the grave with me, because I could never, like, what would they say or they think, that I'm not really as good as they think I am. But God has shown me none of us are good except through Him. And we all have a messy past. We all have things in our lives that we don't want, but God can clean it up. You know, God has just recently, so for a long time, going back to the PTSD, for a long time, I couldn't hear the word abortion. I couldn't hear the word abortion because it caused so much pain in me. And that was a guarded secret. And I didn't even want to be present when they said it, because I didn't want someone to see my facial expressions, because I didn't want someone to see the look on my face or in my eyes when that, so I would avoid it at all costs. At all costs. I couldn't even hear that word, because it was like it just happened, you know, with the guilt. And in 2020, God started dealing with me about this. Like, it was buried so deep. There's many times I just forgot about it, honestly, because it was suppressed. And God started bringing it up. And I started really wanting to speak out for life. Because, this is, God's doing something in the spirit. And I started wanting to speak out for life. But the enemy comes in and says, you cannot speak for life. You took your baby's life. You are a murderer. So he comes in and he whispers all the lies to get you to go along with his agenda. And then he comes in and attacks you like you're the worst person in the face of the earth because you did what he led you to do. Even though, and I'm just starting to understand the spiritual aspect of this and the spiritual warfare. Because the Bible says that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but principalities and powers and spirits. And that's what that is. And that's what the spirit of abortion is. It's the spirit of murder. It's actually child sacrifice. It really is. It's child sacrifice. That is what they did to offer to Baal the children. And if people could understand that, their guards would be up, The enemy is coming in to steal, kill, and destroy. He does that in every way imaginable. He stole my baby from me, killed my baby, because I listened and believed his lies, and almost destroyed me. He didn't completely destroy me through the divorce. So then the abortion. He didn't completely destroy me. I still, even though I wasn't walking with God at the time, I still knew that I had that foundation. And I did cry out to God. But he didn't just completely destroy me through that. So then he attacked my family and through the affair. And I really thought that was it. I thought that was it. I thought life was over. I thought I'd lost my family, my kids, every good thing I'd ever had in my life. And God showed his mercy on us and restored us. And that was the thing that was supposed to take me out. And I honestly thought it was. I told God, go ahead and take me. Just take me now, because I can't even handle all the broken pieces of my life right now. But there was so much mercy and grace, and he brought my husband and I back together closer than we'd ever been. And he restored our family. And just to give the enemy a black eye, that's when I really got to know Jesus, the real Jesus. I knew I was saved, but that's when I began my intimate relationship with Jesus, because I needed him like I had never ever needed him before. So I just want to share that there's hope, there's healing if you've been that road and you've made that choice and you regret it and you're living in the guilt and the shame of it. There is healing from that. There is pure forgiveness that covers you from the Father. There's pure love that covers you from the Father, and he doesn't see your sin, and your baby in heaven won't see your sin. And when you get there, you're going to have eternity with your baby. Make sure you know Jesus Christ so you can be there with your baby, because all babies are in heaven. Make sure that you're going to be there with your baby, and there's no judgment, no condemnation. But if this is speaking to anybody that is contemplating the abortion or afraid because you don't know how to make it work and you don't know what to do, if this is speaking to you, I'm going to pray over you to choose life. Choose life. Even if you don't know how it'll work and you don't know the answers, God does. And if you choose life, which is what he wants you to choose, he says in his word, I lay the path before you of life and death. Choose life. If you choose life, if you choose God's will, there is no way he will leave you high and dry in that. He will provide, even if you are not even a believer yet. You will become a believer because you will see what he will do and the miracles he will work through you choosing the life of your child. Because your child, it says that the children are a heritage from the Lord. It's our gift. It is a gift, and we have got to stop looking at children as a curse. As a curse for, oh my gosh, 18 years of my life is gone. You can't look at it like that. Children are a gift, and they are blessings, and they are meant to be blessings to you and to the world. They have divine destinies and purposes just like you do. So I pray that this message will reach someone, anyone. I pray that it'll bring healing to people that are broken like I was broken. I'm just now receiving healing after 24 years. Don't wait that long. Don't wait that long. It can mess up the other things. But I pray that if you're on the verge and you're unsure and you're afraid, there are resources available. There are resources. I'm sure you can connect to this ministry and find resources close to you. I know that people will reach out and help you find resources, because the goal is to choose life. And it is not something, I've never met someone that regretted choosing life. But everyone that I've met that's had an abortion has regretted choosing death. And it is life or death. We have to call it what it is. It's death. And we cannot choose death for our babies. Animals don't even do that. That is not God's purpose for our lives and for His children. So I just hope that this can help someone else find forgiveness and freedom and courage to do the right thing. Courage. And if you are going to Planned Parenthood to look for answers, please don't. Know that they're going to tell you a lie. Know they're going to tell you a lie. I've lived it. I've experienced it. And I believe because post-abortive mothers have not spoken out is why the problem of abortion is where it is today. And, I remember telling God when He started speaking to my heart in 2020 about speaking over life and being pro-life. I am pro-life, but speaking up that I was pro-life. And I said, God, how can I do that? The enemy has told me you would be a hypocrite because you took your baby's life. God said, who better to tell the truth about abortion than someone who has walked it out, who knows the truth from the lies, who knows the pain and the suffering, who knows the trauma. Who better to tell the truth? Just like when you want help, when you want help from dealing with mental illness, you go to someone that's recovered from mental illness. Or if you want help dealing from alcohol addiction or drug addiction, you go to someone that's walked that journey, that knows what you're going through, that knows where you are, right? You go to those people that have been there and come out on the other side, and they know how to get to freedom. That's where you want, so you go to them. That's my call. I've been there. I know the journey. It's painful, but I know how to get to freedom on the other side.